Nassaumen Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Writers.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Writers Podcasting Network. I am one of your co-hosts, James Nichols, and as always, I'm here with my good buddy, Jon Zella. What's up, pal?
Nothing much. Long couple days.
Yeah.
Happy to talk about some hockey.
Yeah.
I'll try to make it a short and quick one tonight, but thanks to everyone who joined us on Twitch. You got a little bit of a different show.
Yeah.
After some technical difficulties, but still a really good time. Cool interacting with some people, and we hope to see that grow.
Yeah, if you're listening to this right now and you were also on our Skype call, don't worry. It will sound like this next time. We just had a few technical issues, and I figured it all out. It's all good. It's not John's fault. It's mine. But hey, we're good to go now. So let's have some fun with the recorded version tonight. And hopefully next week you guys will follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nassaumen Hockey. And you guys can check out the live show. And if you'd like, on your commute to work, listen to the recorded version as well. Up to you. So let's talk about the regional divisions that were proposed, rumors about what's going to happen. There are regional divisions, and like we said yesterday, the Metropolitan Division largely stays the same. Not much changes there. But there is a Canadian division, which is really interesting because it's all the Canadian teams in one division. It looks pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on the Canadian division?
I first saw this, and I first saw this through the World Hockey Report on Twitter, and then heard kind of a follow-up report by Chris Johnston and Eric Engels, both of Sportsnet, who discussed this on the Steve Dangle podcast, and mostly due to the Canadian division needing to kind of exist in its own bubble due to border restrictions.
Right.
I don't see that changing. The more that I'm paying attention to different things through some work that I'm doing right now, it seems like things are going to be closed for some time. Domestically, forget about trying to do things internationally. So that makes a lot of sense. You would need to have that 2-week quarantine, similar to going into the bubble this year. I think the interesting part would be that the Islanders would kind of be playing a lot of games against their rivals, which might be good
awesome
for kind of reviving a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone got better. Nobody in the Metropolitan got worse. Even the Devils and the Rangers got better. Everyone's kind of a contender. The Penguins, Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Carolina were all legitimate playoff teams, and the Capitals. And like I said, the Rangers and Devils got better, so it would make for some interesting NHL hockey going into the season. It would definitely be shorter. I think that's kind of what I'm also seeing is 50 or 60 games. The thought right now is February 1st, despite the commissioners' thought to get the season going on January 1st. So, it seems like some things are up in the air. Maybe some trial balloons to see what the feelings were for some people. And I really haven't seen anything largely against it. No one's coming out and calling, for people's heads for possibly proposing this kind of thing. So, maybe so far so good. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, to your point on the different possible start dates, they did declare January 1st as what the target is at the draft. But funny enough, I was listening to David Pagnotta on a podcast the other day, and he had, mentioned, that yes, they have that as the projected start date, but they have plans for January 1st, January 15th, February 1st, February 15th, March 1st, March 15th. So it's not just, one plan that they're trying to go after. There's multiple plans here. And although they did say January 1st is the projected target, it's not necessarily going to be set in stone as January 1st. So I wouldn't count on it just yet. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it very well could be pushed back, 15 days, 30 days, a month, or even 2. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said before, though, with the realignment, the Metropolitan stays the same mostly, which is kind of cool. It's even cooler that all the Canadian teams get their own little bubble. I think it'll be interesting to see how those matchups play out. And like you said before too, like the rivalry thing, I'd love to see us play the Rangers more, the Devils more. Like it's going to be fun, and everybody did get better. So it'll definitely be a tough road for them.
Yeah, I don't think it definitely doesn't make anything easier,
Right.
even in a shortened season. But it would be cool to have Sorokin versus Shesterkin a whole bunch of times to really spark that. A lot of good young players on the Rangers, a lot of good young players on the Islanders. We really could revive something great here, and I hope they meet in the playoffs at some point. As deep as they can, I think they'd have to be very specific seeds to meet in, say, the Eastern Conference Final or something. But it would be fantastic to have that. I think it's just good for hockey in New York.
Yeah, that would be
you probably
sweet.
get a lot of kids motivated to play and keep the sport growing and all that good stuff. And spotlight shines its brightest on New York sometimes. So great when both those teams do well.
Yeah, pretty cool. Speaking of a bright shining spot, the spot is often shown on Toronto, and they made some pretty good moves for their team. They signed Joe Thornton, Zach Bogosian, and Wayne Simmons. The Toronto Maple Leafs just acquired three pretty grizzled veterans here. And not that I think that, they're going to push the needle in terms of skill, but they're going to push the needle for them in terms of experience and know how to win. Far too often you saw the Leafs, score 8 goals, but you also saw them give up 9. So it was like, and I'm exaggerating a little bit. It could be, they scored,
winning or losing games 8-6. It was very common for them to do that. The team chemistry or will to want to win was not always there.
Right. Yeah. So Bogosian makes them a little tougher. Simmons makes them a lot tougher. Not that I think that Simmons has too much left in the tank, but nobody really wants to, go toe to toe with Simmons. He's tough to play against. Bogosian brings that cup experience. He just came off winning a cup with Tampa Bay, so that's pretty big for them. And Joe Thornton is Joe Thornton. Whether he plays on the third or the fourth line, he's still going to produce, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're looking at the past few Stanley Cup winners and the contenders, and looking at the fact that they can't just win with pure skill. They got to have a little bit more sandpaper in there. And it's a little bit of an old school view, but playoff hockey is often a little bit different. It's a little bit tougher. People are laying it on the line. And if your team isn't full of guys that are going to do that, you're going to struggle. And, the Islanders had 4 lines and 3 pairs of D that were going to go out there every single night and give it their all and leave it on the ice. And you saw how far it took them.
Yeah.
The Islanders' style and the players bode well for them in the playoffs. The Leafs did not. They were going to be the 3rd seed in that division, and with Tampa and Boston, and they were going to get matched up with the 2nd seed because they were the 3rd seed, and it was going to be Boston or it was going to be Tampa. If they dropped any lower, you really don't want that to be a wild card playing the top seed of the other division. But they, it just made me think. I put this in our talking points just to kind of juxtapose that with the Islanders and to show that teams are kind of catching on to just make the playoffs, but build your team for the playoffs and for that deep run.
Yeah.
Full of tough guys that either know how to win, they have the experience. People are going to listen to Joe Thornton in that locker room.
Yeah.
Bogosian is a gnarly dude. Simmons, I think, was injured. I was kind of hearing some things that he's healthier now than he was going into last season.
Right.
So maybe the last year or so. It's kind of like Bogosian. Don't think of him as a defender from when he was on the Sabres because they were terrible. Think of him kind of wherever he was playing after that. So I think Simmons on the Sabres, maybe catch a theme here. Don't, O'Reilly, all those guys, don't think of them how they were on the Sabres. Maybe think about them how they were prior to that. Simmons got a raw deal in Philadelphia. I really wish he stayed there. He kind of fit that style, and
definitely
maybe injuries caught up or whatever, and they were too expensive. But he moved around. I believe he was on Nashville for a cup of coffee, and then he was on the Devils, and then he got traded to Buffalo as well, and he took a little bit of a pay cut to go home. So it's great to see that. I love those stories.
Yep.
other than the one that
I was
hurt
just
the
gonna
Islanders.
say.
So maybe not so much. Although, and so somebody asked us on the last show. We're going a little off script here. So someone asked us, even as a joke,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this guy? And I think you and I even spoke about, how do we feel about that now after 2 years and all that? Would we be a better team if he was still there? Does all this kind of still happen? And I think the answer is I don't really care.
Yeah.
I think it's all conjecture and hypothetical. Yes, I guess Lou was already there. Trotz was in there by the time he signed on July 1st. So maybe they really turn it around and this team is kind of on another level. I think I'd rather, what we've seen from a lot of other teams is that they're really deep. The teams that win Stanley Cups are deep, and the Islanders and Dallas were really, really similar. I like that they can roll 4 lines. I like that they're strong up the middle. I don't know that, all right, I'll say this. You're a better team with John Tavares on your team.
Right. They would have been
You're better with John Tavares.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on paper anyway, but it seems, Pajot came in and really just balanced that lineup so well.
Totally agree.
And I don't know. I mean, maybe they're the same because you don't get to sign Pajot if you have Tavares on there.
They're not the same.
A $10 million deal. It's not the same. They're not even the same player. I'm saying like the cost, right? You can't then add other pieces that you needed to add. So maybe they can't afford to bring in a Komarov that was, really, really good, or a Filppula for, I don't know. They seem to figure it out. Lou is really good at his job. He's a Hall of Fame GM.
True.
So hard to say. I know it was a joke, but it's worth saying. The team is really deep with what they have, and we'll talk about possible additions and things later. But just when we bring up the Leafs, JT's bound to come up, and I frankly don't know. I don't know that it's really worth diving into anymore. Whether or not they'd be better or not. They've had a great run the last 2 years. I don't know that it matters anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say about it is they would be better with him on paper. But, people, when they say, how do you feel about the situation? I just wish that if he knew he was going to leave, then he should have let us, move him for assets. But, apparently he didn't know, and it was a last minute thing, walking around the pool, this and that and the other thing. We heard the whole spiel. So, not really too much more to say about that. John Tavares is a Maple Leaf now, and the Islanders have the best center core they've had in years. So, and I'm not because he left, but because they went out and did what they had to do. So, getting back to the Maple Leafs, not named John Tavares, they actually moved on from Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Janssen. But despite that, they get a little bit deeper with those acquisitions of Thornton, Bogosian, and Simmons. So the Leafs will be a little bit...
Another tie in with that is that, they gave up players they didn't want to bring in players that they needed.
Yep.
And I think, again, Taves, that's a very similar thing. Sorry if you were going to say that. I interrupted you.
Yeah, it's fine.
But that's the same idea.
Exactly.
So GMs are kind of doing that. This is what's going on. Hopefully, again, we'll talk about what moves Lou can make and going into the next season and the next 2 seasons rather. But yeah, they probably didn't want to do that. Those aren't 2 guys you necessarily want to trade. So they made a really hard decision, just like Taves, and another really good team now in the East with the Leafs.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other notable moves. Another team in Canada made a pretty nice signing. The Ottawa Senators signed Evgeny Dadonov to a 3-year, $15 million contract with a $5 million AAV. And that's just a good signing for them, I think. They draft the German kid, Tim Stützle. I've been saying Stützle. I'm pretty sure it's Stützle. And I think that's a great move for them, for another guy who is from Russia, to mold the young kid coming in. And don't look now, but Ottawa doesn't look too bad after now having Matt Murray, Evgeny Dadonov. I hear the situation with Declare. He could circle back to them, but we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But Ottawa is not too bad now on paper. I always like Brady Tkachuk. He's pretty good. So with Dadonov and I forget their first line center's name. But either way, they're not.
I don't know. They keep trading them, so I don't know.
That's true, right?
The centers are.
Yeah. So, but they're not too bad. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs or anything this year, but they're starting to trend in the right direction finally. More than you can say for. Unfortunately, the Red Wings, they just keep getting worse somehow. But Evgeny Dadonov to the Senators for 3 years. Good signing by them. That was one of the Islanders' targets. Maybe not so much the organization, but Islander fans. So you can scratch that one off the board. Evgeny Dadonov to the Ottawa Senators. Moving on to the Blackhawks. Interesting news came out yesterday. And this is all got to do with what I think happened, as soon as they traded Brendan Saad. Saad goes to the Avalanche for Nikita Zadorov, and then there were comments that came out from actually Jonathan Toews, who doesn't do too much media, and he basically says, no one told me that we were in rebuild mode. And slowly but surely you started to get the sense that things are not going so well in Chicago. So sure enough, yesterday they sent a message to their fans, much like the Rangers did a couple years ago. Hey, we're declaring a rebuild, but they also declared that they will not be trading the core four in Toews, Kane, Keith, and Seabrook. But the message was, quote, the intention isn't to move them, unquote. So to me, it sounds like we're rebuilding. We're not looking actively to trade Toews, Kane, Keith, and Seabrook. But if something comes along that we think fits our needs, sure, we'll move them. What do you think?
I think that they're saying they don't want to trade those core four guys because they can't trade those guys. Their contracts are, even Calvin DeHaan has a pretty big cap hit at 4.5, but Duncan Keith at 5.5 and some change, and those other guys, even DeBrincat's at 6, almost 6.5, but 10.5 each for Kane and Toews for the next 3 years. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like they just signed a 5-year deal and you're hanging around with these guys. They've been on the team for a long time. They have a lot in the tank. They're 31 and 32. They're not going to drop off immediately in the next year, but it really puts it handcuffs the organization to be able to make moves. So I don't think, I know part of them may not want to move them, but I really don't think, especially right now, that there's no teams that, the Blackhawks don't want to retain salary for guys that aren't playing for them because they don't really have the cash to outlay, which is the same problem with teams not taking on contracts for guys and moving things around and all that. Just like there's just not enough cash to go around in the league, and there's not enough cap room. So both of those problems kind of compound things. Yeah, you're right. If they could move them, I'm sure they do. If they can get better, any GM is going to do that. They have trade protection and all that stuff. So they also didn't re-sign Crawford, who's now on New Jersey.
Right.
Which is great for Blackwood. I think that's a great signing for them. Kind of teach the kid. He doesn't have all the pressure on him. He can kind of learn from somebody that's won his cups and has a ton of experience. But that's another guy from that core that just isn't there anymore. And you got to wonder how much longer the GM has there in Chicago. How long the fact that he's won the cups means to the owners before and to the fans before they kind of turn on him. So it's an interesting situation. I will say also that it's a ballsy freaking move to say that you're in a rebuild. Now, it's also twice as ballsy to not tell your captain that you're doing it, or at least not have the same understanding of what that is.
Correct.
But as a franchise to do it, just like the Rangers did, as you mentioned, that's tough. I mean, you almost don't want to do it because fans aren't necessarily going to be in the seats anytime soon, but you want to be able to keep fans interested and not wait for you to be good again. That was the problem in Chicago. That was the problem on Long Island. That was the problem in a lot of other cities where When the team's not good, people don't show up, and the people that do are booing, and you don't want that. Makes it not a fun place to be. When the Coliseum was leaking, and your only star is Ziggy Palffy, and you trade him, and then all you got's Trevor Linden. Not great. Not a good look.
No, not the best.
You trade Longo and all this stuff. No one wanted to come to Long Island. It was no surprise. So hopefully Chicago can, rebuild and retool on the move. That's probably what their intention is ultimately, but and these guys have a little bit more in the tank. Maybe they can put a couple guys. DeBrincat's really good. There's another young kid, Kubalik. He's got a couple of years left at almost $4 million, but
he just signed that deal. He signed a 2-year deal,
and he just signed. He's worth it too. 25 years old.
Yeah.
Scoring a bunch of goals. DeBrincat, same thing. So
they got to re-sign Strome still too.
They do have to re-sign Dylan Strome. It's an interesting situation there.
The thing is, I think that the Blackhawks have some of the pieces already to build off of to accelerate this rebuild. And if they took, if Stan Bowman took anything out of the Rangers playbook, it was make the right moves. The Rangers made all the right moves, and they put that rebuild in fast forward. They're going to contend maybe as soon as this upcoming season. As much as you Islander fans might hate hearing that, it's just true. So if they start with Strome, DeBrincat, Kubalik, those are some young guys where if you make the right move or two, where you can get some sort of your own version of an Adam Fox, and then maybe make a good signing like the Panarin signing for the Rangers, it might not be too difficult to quote unquote retool that team, rebuild that team, all while still having, by the way, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews on the team. Now, was Jonathan Toews who he was a couple of years ago? No, but he's still Jonathan Toews, and he's still going to play his heart out night in and night out, and you would be happy with him on your second line on any team. So the Blackhawks do declare a rebuild, but it could move as quick as it did in New York for the Rangers on Broadway. So we'll see where that goes. I wouldn't, I wouldn't go crazy thinking, Lou Lamoriello is going to be on Stan Bowman about acquiring a Patrick Kane. It's not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen before they tweeted out that they're not, going to sell the core 4. It's not going to happen now. They can't make that money work. It's too much. And I know people are going to tell me they can move salary and take some salary back, and I get it. Lou Lamoriello is not going after Patrick Kane. It's not happening. If they're
even if they retained half of the salary, the Chicago Blackhawks currently have a little more than $5 million left. They still have to re-sign Strome, as you said. Then next year they have a number of RFAs and UFAs on the front end and the back end. They will eventually need to get an actual goalie that's not Malcolm Subban or Colin Delia. One of them can be your backup, but you can't go forward with two.
Yeah, I don't know if
the goalie carousel happened this year. So unless maybe Lundqvist gets his year in Washington and maybe moves on, and Chicago's moving in the right direction, I doubt any good goalie is going to want to go to Chicago in the next few years unless they get their shit together.
I don't know if they have something in Chicago on Subban where they kind of know that maybe he could take the reins, because I think that's what they were getting at. They signed him to that 2-year extension, and I think he's going to be their starter. So maybe, I don't know, maybe he plays himself into the equation. I know he was a high draft pick, and by Boston, I believe. Yeah, he was supposed to succeed Rask at some point. They left him unprotected, or did he get traded to Vegas? He wound up in Vegas somehow. Then he's with the Blackhawks as part of the Leonard deal. So Subban will be taking the net for the Blackhawks. A lot of moving parts over in Chicago, but one of those moving parts,
he's the starting goalie.
Yeah, no, he's the starting
and
goalie.
He's never played more than 22 games in a season, and the other guy has 18 games of experience.
Right, and I'm not sure if that's Bowman, tanking for the first overall pick. I don't think that's really a thing, especially with the way we saw the Rangers move up 2 years in a row now. It's just it's a crapshoot. It could happen to anyone. Anybody can lose the first overall pick. It's just I don't see him, trying to play his way into the first overall pick. But I could see him saying, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we're rebuilding. So we'll see what happens. A lot of moving parts, like I said, in Chicago, but one of those moving parts will not be Patrick Kane to the Islanders. So hold your horses on that. Speaking of moving parts, there was an article that came out the other day. I don't know. I don't know.
It's almost not worth addressing this.
It's almost not, but we have to, just so that we can put it to rest. We're going to put it to rest here. Eklund of the Hockey Buzz put out this article stating that Patrick Laine is guaranteed to get traded by the Winnipeg Jets, which I still don't believe, but it's possible, but I'm not going to say it's a guarantee. And it followed up with and it's possibly for Matt Barzal from the New York Islanders. It's just simply not true. It's not going to happen. There's no way you take a franchise player like Barzal to trade him for a very good elite player in Patrick Laine, but Patrick Laine doesn't make the team any better. Matt Barzal makes the team better. Why trade for a first-line sniper when you don't have a first-line center to pair him with? It's just simply not true. Matt Barzal's not going anywhere. He wants to be an Islander. He'll either sign a bridge or a long-term deal, and if he signs that bridge, his long-term deal will come later. So, putting it to rest, Matt Barzal will not be in any other jersey for at least the next 3 to 10 years, 11 years. Unless he gets traded for some ridiculous package and something that, some unfortunate twist of fate where the Islanders go in a downward spiral and they need to do another rebuild. I doubt that happens, but Matt Barzal will not be in another jersey for the next 3 to 11 years.
Yeah, I see a lot of this core wanting to see their work through. So I have a feeling that they'll want to stick around as long as the team will have them. I'm interested to see how Lou handles some of these bigger contracts. I mean, he's handed out some pretty good ones, pretty good size ones to some guys. So I really hope they can just get it done and we can put this to bed. And I want to see Barzal on the team as long as possible.
Yeah, and he will be. All right, to some real news now. The other day, I'm sitting at my kitchen table, I'm drinking my cup of coffee, and I'm like, oh, what a nice morning. And then it got worse because Doc Emmerich is retiring, and I am not here for it, man. I'm not here for it. No, I'm just kidding. I shouldn't say that. Look, absolutely deserves it. Congratulations to the best play-by-play announcer in the NHL, in the NHL history, in my opinion. He totally earned it. And the last thing I'm going to say about it is thank God we have Brendan Burke, who is the next best announcer in the league. Don't even at me. Don't question me on it. It's true. He is one of the best. But
I believe Butcher Gross on ESPN on Ice with Greg Wyshynski and Emily Kaplan mentioned Burke as one of the up-and-coming really great broadcasters in hockey. So it's something for on their fans to kind of hang their hat on, and it's a good segue into my thoughts on this, which is, just like we are spoiled now with Burke, who now gets to do national games and people get to listen to him. We were spoiled in the tri-state market for a while. Yeah. Although he was doing some, international things here and there, while ESPN had the rights to like Stanley Cups and things like that. Doc was with the Devils, and we got to hear him whenever we weren't watching an Islander game, or maybe we even watched the Devils broadcast. We love Howie, but maybe we watched it for Doc when he was doing those games, and he had a lot of fun with Chico Resch back in the day. And I almost didn't realize that Doc was around as long as he was. 4 decades and some great Islander games. I believe the Easter Epic with Bill Clement. I'm not going to repeat part of the video that I saw online. Go check it out. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Definitely a period piece. Take it for what it is and don't do anything more than that. But, cause he's such a great guy and he always has fun. And, he's kind of in our memories forever with some of the video games, kind of like those early games with with Bill Clement and those ESPN 2K games and all that kind of stuff, and Jim Houston, back in the day, NHL 2002, like, he's kind of forever has his place in a lot of fans' hearts and minds when it comes to hockey, and hope he gets to enjoy himself. Him and the dogs and his wife get to hang out, and no pressure. It's a great career, but hope he gets to enjoy himself.
Absolutely. I hate thinking about, a world of hockey without Doc in it, but I'm sure he'll make his, guest appearance here and there anyway on the occasion.
That's what I'm thinking. I wonder if he does like the Winter Classic.
Yeah. That would be
something like that,
or that would be a really good touch.
Yeah, just like once a year. I mean, it'd be interesting to be like, yeah, I'm retiring. Oh, by the way, the first game of the year, I'm going to be doing that.
Could you imagine?
So maybe not this year, but maybe in the back here and there. I'm surprised the Devils haven't been able to bring him back. And maybe they did, and I missed it. But it'd be cool to kind of have him back on a broadcast here and there and do some local games. Would feel good to be spoiled again. But yep. Sorry to see him go, but totally get it.
Yeah,
do your thing, man.
Absolutely. Congratulations to Doc. And let the era of Burke begin. The NHL.
Well, we don't want to lose him from the Islander podcast. We don't want him to go too
That's
soon.
True.
Let him
That's
let
true.
him stay with the Islanders for some time. Him and some guys can get their time on the national broadcast. But we want Burke for ourselves.
That's true. Yeah, you can't take him from
for now.
NBC.
I mean, to be fair, we want him to have a good career, and if it means he's not with the Islanders anymore, more power to him.
That is also fair.
But so yeah. Little catch-22 there.
The NHL had some jersey leaks come out in the past couple of days, actually. Ice Ethics tweeted out these interesting concepts for both Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and supposedly they're official. They're going with this term called reverse retro. I wasn't exactly sure what that means. After some, dialogue about that, it's really just a retro jersey that they had with inverse colors. So kind of cool. There was that Pittsburgh one where they used to have the Pittsburgh diagonal down the chest of a black Penguins jersey. Now it's white and it looks a little updated and a little new. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of cool. And same for the Flyers. They had a Flyers jersey that used to be white and it's now orange. It's one of the retro. What is it? This one of the '70s Flyers jerseys, or later?
It looks like it's from the Lindros era and the.
Right.
Maybe or the mid '90s, early 2000s. Think Roman Cechmanek or John Van Viesbroek. Some of these guys, John LeClaire era of the Flyers, or when they lost to the Red Wings in '96 or '97 in the Stanley Cup. And then the Pittsburgh one is interesting. They changed the shoulder patches, it looks like. Still kind of cool. It's weird because it seems like they're picking, the Flyers one is pretty general. But there were two more that were leaked today.
Were they?
Anaheim Mighty, not the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights one that you sent me. Earlier.
Yeah.
The Vegas one, that's weird. I guess maybe just make a red jersey and call it a day. I don't know that you need to change the crest, but I don't really care. The Ducks one, however, is interesting because that was one of those jerseys, kind of like the Burger King LA Kings jerseys, where you're like, are you really like? It looks like a roller hockey jersey from like. All right, this is I'm doing a throwback here. Anyone that's listening that played at Sports Arena or previously Bulldog out in St. James. It looks like one of the jerseys we would have worn for one of our teams. I'm thinking like, the Raptors or any of these guys, the Piranhas, any of my friends that are maybe listening that were played on those teams, the old Ducks jerseys. Now, not the traditional Mighty Ducks one, not even the one from the movie that they sometimes used with that weird green color and the really, this is like this is actually the character from, it looks like from the TV show. If anyone remembers the Mighty Ducks TV show,
course.
That's what this is. That's like what this logo looks like.
Yep.
And he's a mighty duck, and he's flying away. And
he's breaking
I will say
through
this,
ice, John.
breaking through the noise because he's mighty. Anyway, so the what I will say is really cool about this jersey is that it is a very different color for the NHL. The orange is like a cool color.
Yeah.
I don't love it. This is weird and dumb. It scratches an itch for me for 90s hockey, which I think is what they're doing. They're like all these late 20 somethings and 30 somethings and early 40 somethings are like, I'm nostalgic. I want the 90s back. And that's what they're doing. And they're going to sell a ton of these because they need revenue because they're not going to have fans in the seats. So we can think they're as dumb as we want. But just like the fisherman stuff for the Islanders, they're trying to make some money. It's a business. That's okay. We want them to be able to pay guys like Barzell so they can win a championship. So it's fine. What do you think the Islanders jersey is going to look like? I know we spoke about it on Twitch a little bit. Have you had any time to think about it and settle on anything?
I don't think it's going to be a fisherman. It's not Lamoriello. Lou doesn't really do the quirky kind of thing like that. He doesn't follow the trends or anything. He likes his clean looks. He likes his basic looks. Look at the Devils for however long. Look at the Leafs for ever. They never really veered away from what they had. So, maybe they clean up the fisherman a little bit. Maybe they make it the fisherman without the waves. But like you said yesterday, if you're gonna do it, own it. Go all out. Do the waves.
Yeah, don't change it. It's a crappy jersey. Just leave it the same crappy jersey we all love, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think, and you mentioned this yesterday. I wouldn't want them to go to this, but I love the idea of going with an orange jersey, and I think we may have even talked about this previously.
Yeah, we did.
Just kind of going with a regular Islander jersey and inversing the colors.
Yeah.
Having it predominantly be orange and then have white and blue stripes.
Yeah,
that would be sick. I'm there for that. I think we've even seen Adidas mock-ups of that.
Yeah, we have.
Maybe we'll tweet it out or something. We'll have to share it. They looked really good. I really didn't hate that idea because it's still an Islander jersey. It's just an orange version. It's not like the pumpkin jersey they did in like 2005, 6, whatever, that era.
Right.
And they had like the dopey triangles under their ribs or whatever the case is. It was a weird, I don't know, continued just weird time in Islanders history. And then a few years later, they totally changed the jersey with all that dopey piping that they had all over it, just like the Sabres.
Yep.
Reebok did a number on this league, man. Jesus, the CCM jerseys were great back in the day. Yeah, they just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy many of the jerseys. They just try to do too much, and I think Adidas is doing a little bit better of a job being more authentic and genuine, kind of like to the sports and what the fans are looking for. I'll say it again, like the Penguins one's really weird because it wasn't for very long, and I don't know how popular it was. Now it's a Mario Lemieux jersey. Yager was in this jersey. Tom Barrasso was in this jersey. Yeah. It was right after their Stanley Cups, though. So they didn't do anything of substance with it. So there's no pictures of them with the cup. Like, I don't think they were particularly good during that time. By the time they made it towards the playoffs, and when Darius Kasparaitis scored the overtime goal against the Buffalo Sabres, I think it's like 2001, and they changed their jerseys again by that point to what it was right before their current change when Crosby came around. So I'm not exactly sure what the thought process is there. It is definitely different. It's simple. I guess it's clean. It's a throwback for somebody. Yeah. They'll probably sell a ton of them. Like I said, that's the point. So who am I?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole point of, getting this fourth jersey in is, the league isn't selling seats right now. So they need something to sell. And I think that this reverse, jersey trend that they're going with is a step in that direction, sort of like how the NBA has the city edition jerseys and all these other themed jerseys. I think that's what the NHL is trying to do now, especially since, like I said, there are no fans in the seats and there's no concession money coming in or anything like that. So it's a fun little thing, and I think it'll it'll turn out to be something interesting, something cool to wear on occasion. And I'm sticking with it's either going to be an orange jersey of what we already have. Maybe it'll be a recolored third jersey that we already have, maybe a white version instead of the blue. There's nothing really retro about it, but I don't really know how much more to expect because I really just don't think it's going to be the Fisherman. But time will tell. We will see. Let's move on to a little bit of New York Islanders news. Anders Lee spoke a little bit to the media the other day and started off by saying that he will be coming back to New York fairly soon. I don't know if that really has anything to do with the indication of when the season's going to start or anything, but he did confirm he'll be back soon. Didn't give a time period or any dates, but soon is good enough for me. Was a little disappointed with the Devin Tays trade, but he understands it's a business. It's some excitement on Belmont coming from him. There's no more going to be, where are the New York Islanders playing? Are they playing in Brooklyn? Are they playing on Long Island? Well, yeah, they'll be on Long Island. And then, but Long Island just closed its doors at the Nassau Coliseum. And then, no, but they're going back there anyway. It's over. They're playing at Nassau. And then Belmont will be open, and all will be said and done with the arena situation. And I can confidently say I'm very happy I'll never have to talk about that again. Then he got a little bit into the playoffs, and he said there's always going to be this sting. We learned a lot, and I think that sting and that disappointment will never leave. But it's something that we can handle and grow from. And like we've been preaching, in order to succeed, you have to fail, just so you can learn how to succeed for the next time. So I think that, they're really going to stick with that mantra this upcoming season. They always stick to something, we over me, next man up, they always have something, prove people wrong. They always have something to play for. And now I think that might be one of the last straws they need to really get to the show, maybe get to the cup. I don't know. They made some subtractions this offseason. They still need to make some additions, so we'll see how the roster shakes out. But the majority of the core is still there, and they're all going to learn from that situation, especially with Lee leading the group. It's going to be really cool to see how they come forward with all that experience that they just got.
Yeah, like I said with Barzal, there's some unfinished business for sure. So I think they want to see through what they've been doing. I'd like to see the Islanders at least make it to Game 7 of the second round or into the conference finals for a few years. I mean, think about how long. I don't want it to take as long as maybe the Washington Capitals or some of these other teams, but I want to see them be perennial contenders, and then 1, 2, 3 years they make an actual run where they're in Game 7 of the conference finals a bunch of times and sneaking into the Stanley Cup final here and there. I want them to be sustainably good. I don't want it to be a blip.
Right.
I don't think the last 2 years were. I don't think that's how they're building this team, but it's going to be important for them to keep motivating this core, continue to build around them. They have a good size window here.
Yeah, they do.
Guys are getting 30, 31, but that doesn't mean that the window is just closed. That people, players turn 30 and that's it. They're washed up. So, look at someone like Green, who played an enormous role. Even the current Islanders players that are turning 30, I think they're still contributing in a really big way. So, I hope the team sticks around long enough, this core, that they can actually put it together and everyone stays healthy. And they add a couple more pieces, and that's all they need. And they're going to need to tweak after this upcoming season. So after with the expansion draft, things are going to change a little bit there too. Maybe the cap goes up, maybe it doesn't. Teams need to go through another round of RFAs and UFAs and all sorts of things. So this upcoming year might not be as exciting. I don't think there's a problem with us making the playoffs unless something crazy happens. But we may not get to the conference final. I mean, you kind of need to be okay with this upcoming year is going to be another crazy 50, 60 game season year. And they might not be able to make the moves right now, but they're trying to make sure that they can make moves next year to improve, again, to be sustainably good and be a perennial contender. So love Lee, everything that he's saying. I don't think he's just saying the right things. He seems like a really genuine person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to have him as leader of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite comment came from when he was asked about the fans waiting for the team at the airport, and he was just so excited about it. He said he was ecstatic to see everybody there. He said, we take so much pride in playing on the island, and as New York Islanders, our fans, they have a ton of pride in our team and in our organization. That was pretty special for them to take the trek out to the airport for us. That's just the stuff that makes all this so special, because we want to do it with everybody. It's not just the guys in the locker room. It's the island, and we came up a little bit short for everybody. That's what we're building on and looking forward to improving on. So, I mean, that was just the perfect quote to me. He's the embodiment of what it means to be a New York Islander. He's the embodiment of the New York Islanders. And he was picked to be the captain for a reason, and it was the perfect choice. And he's just simply, in my opinion, he might go down as one of the best captains in Islander history.
Yeah, he's led them pretty far in his tenure. Yeah. And like I said, I think the trajectory can go up quite a bit. Obviously, they still need to win a Stanley Cup, and getting to Game 7 of the conference finals is another step. But much like the Oilers seeing the Islanders in the 80s and during the Islanders' last Stanley Cup in 1983, not doing a whole lot of celebrating, having a lot of ice packs, and they walk past the locker room and they said, wow, that's really what it takes to win. And then next year they go out and they sacrifice and wound up ending the Islanders' drive for 5. So these guys are slowly learning. They're almost a full team of guys that have some pretty good experience after the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's something not a lot of teams have, and like I said, it can only go up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of other news now. I'm driving the other day, and I'm listening to our good friends over at Hockey Night New York, and they had David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period on. He is the editor-in-chief at the fourthperiod.com, Sirius XM Radio. And, he had his comments on what the Islanders were doing as far as this offseason. He likes where they're going. He likes the direction that they're going in. He understood the David Tays trade from a cap space perspective. He liked the return. It was a decent return. And then he was asked, are they in the market for a forward? And he said they're going to have to address the Matt Barzal and Ryan Pulock contracts first. Of course, we all know this. But then he said, when it all shakes out, and if and when they trade Johnny Boychuk like they anticipate, and Leo Komarov like they anticipate, the Islanders should have somewhere between $2 and $3 million in cap space to maybe go out and acquire a middle six forward. So he said that he thinks that they're in the market for a middle six forward when the time comes. And he namely, I shouldn't say namely, he named Andreas Athanasiou and Anthony Duclair. And, I said this last week on the podcast. I think that Anthony Duclair just makes too much sense. How do you not kick the tires on an Anthony Duclair when you already have J.G. Pajot, who had played a lot of time with Duclair in Ottawa last season, and you have Derek Brassard, who is in talks to come back on another one-year deal. So, that could just really make a solid third line with Duclair there. And not only that, but let's say Trotz feels like mixing it up a little bit. Well, Duclair is 25 years old. He had a 23-goal season last season. He's coming off of an all-star appearance last season. He never really found that stability. And if he could just find that stability, maybe give him a one-year deal to, take it by a trial basis, but he's still, he's 25. He fits the mold for the team. He has the scoring touch. It's obvious. He could skate with Matt Barzal. He was in the fastest skater competition against Matt Barzal last year. So he's fast. If they want to stick him on the first line, he could. And, they know he knows how to score. So, I mean, a first line of Barzal, Duclair, and Lee, that would be a fast first line. It'd be hard to keep up with them. So I'm kind of here for it. And if the first line doesn't work out, I mean, I absolutely would take a 23 goal scorer on the third line. So I mean, I'm foaming at the mouth thinking of maybe having an Anthony Duclair type player on the Islanders. I really think it would be great. And let's just say they don't take Derek Brassard back. I'm perfectly fine with sticking Oliver Wahlstrom there if he makes the cut.
Yeah, that would really solidify that third line. That would be amazing. And I think a guy like Duclair can really plug in anywhere in the top 9.
Yeah.
So you can try him out on that first line. You can put him next to Peugeot. They may have maybe skated together. I don't know what the lines were up in Ottawa, but they may have some chemistry together. So that's a thought. So maybe you try him there and you keep the first and second line together. Or you can change it. I think Lee would play well next to Peugeot. I think he would offer the same type of help that Lee does with Barzal. So nothing to say he couldn't do it with Peugeot as well. And the speed on that first line, Eberle might look a little slow, but he's got good hands in tight, and that's kind of his go-to. But Duclair's got a nose for the net. I recently wrote an article that was published on today, on Wednesday, that had every goal from Duclair's season, and he's a hard-nosed kid that he can put the puck in the net. And next to Peugeot or Barzal, I mean, if you can pick him up for $2.5 million, you got to move some stuff around to make all this work, and you're dumping salaries and this and that, and you got to think of the future. If you can get him on a 2 to 3 year at 2.5, I don't know, man. Even having a guy on your third line, or as I've said multiple times, the Islanders have 3 second lines and maybe a third line.
Right.
With the way that they just are super balanced, they roll their lines. Having another 20 goal scorer in the lineup with so you Peugeot, Duclair, Villiers, Eberle, Barzal, Nelson. That's a lot of guys. Even Lee can get 20.
Lee can get
a lot
30.
Of guys. He could. It's got to be deployment. It's got to be specific specific situations. Their power play has to get back on track there, which Duclair can help bolster one or the other units. Look, I think Brassard did great on that, doing that job, but I think Duclair does an even better job.
Absolutely.
You do have to replace Taves on there at some point. I don't know that Dobson can just jump right in, so Leddy and maybe and Pulak kind of go back to that like it was a couple of years ago. But then Duclair, he wants to shoot the puck. He'll shoot from anywhere. Islanders kind of need that. If they can hone him in defensively and then get a little bit more goal scoring instinct on the team, that would be fantastic. So only better if they add someone like that. And he's not expensive. He's in kind of his prime, coming off his career year in goals. Man, I think you snatch him up. If Ottawa doesn't want him, that's fine. Move the salaries around, make it work.
Right.
I try to have patience with Lou. He knows what he's doing, but I don't know, man. I think you got to jump on a guy like that, or
you do.
Even an Athanasiou.
So exactly, if a guy like Duclair maybe doesn't work out, even an Athanasiou would work out really well too. He's very fast. He has a 30-goal season under his belt. He hasn't really had the fortune of playing on great teams. He played with Detroit, and that's where he got his 30-goal season. I believe he was skating with Dylan Larkin and Anthony Mantha. That's a pretty good line. But as for the rest of the team, they weren't very deep, so they were always playing against the top lines of other teams, and they were always getting the hardest workload. He scored 30 goals. I think Athanasiou would be a great addition. He's extremely fast. I mean, he's almost as fast as Barzal. So that would be another great speed line that the Islanders could throw out there if they'd like. And again, if not, he would also slot in pretty well on the third line. So why not try and go after a guy like Athanasiou or Anthony Duclair? I think they both would fit really well. And like you have often said, the Islanders essentially have 3 second lines. How many teams could you say have 3 second lines?
Yeah, that you're not that's a playoff team. Being able to roll those lines, it fits in well with Trotz's strategy. Yeah, not a lot of teams, a lot of talent falls off after that second line, and you just have checking lines. And Pajot's shown he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
Even Lee, so they have people with some toughness and some grit on each line.
Right.
Nelson's shown that he can take some abuse. So, and obviously that third, the fourth line, whatever you want to call it, is tough as nails. Whether that's with Johnston this year or Matt Martin, if he does come back, and everything's kind of paused right now. That's what I put in my article. The Islanders want to bring in guys like Schneider, which is not official, Andy Green, which is not official,
but they are.
They want to bring back Martin and Brassard, but they're all $1 million, right? Save for Schneider because it'll be an AHL deal,
yeah,
or at least be buried in the minors. You still got to find a way to bury Ladd, so you put him down there. If it's LTIR, that's great, but you don't know that until closer to the season,
right?
Which if the season starts on February 1st, training camp doesn't start until the middle of January. They're not doing physicals until right before that, so we're not going to know. So news is kind of slow, and I think it'll continue to be slow. If it's January 1st, we're not finding out anything until well after Thanksgiving. But then you got to find places for all this. So even $2.5 million for an Athanasiou or Duclair, it's got to come from somewhere, and that means that takes Brassard and Martin right out. That's two players that can't come back because one guy came in. That kind of makes that complicated. Unless you're able to move, you move a Boychuk. Maybe you're able to move Komarov. I don't know. That just gets you the room to get your guys back as far as Barzal, Pulak, and maybe Duclair. But then do you still want those other guys? You can't bring back Kuhnhackl and
so here's how I see
Brassard, and then Dalcol could get buried in the A. You just have too many guys up there. You don't need it, but it's complicated.
I mean, here's how I see it. They're talking about bringing guys like Brassard back and Kuhnhackl back, and all the guys are talking about bringing back. They're talking about bringing back while also still having the rights to Johnny Boychuk and Leo Komarov. I think that they're actively trying to move both of them. And if you move that $3 million in Leo Komarov, that opens up another $3 million for them to spend on another forward who could be Duclair or Andreas Athanasiou. So hopefully it happens sooner than later. It's probably going to happen later. I'm thinking we're going to go into the next couple of weeks with a bit of a dry spell. So, I wouldn't constantly refresh Twitter right now at this point. I think it's pretty safe to say that you could put the phone down and then, if something happens, you'll hear it from me or maybe you'll definitely hear it from the Staples and the Comptons, but I think for the next couple of weeks it's going to be pretty dry. But once the dominoes start falling, I think we'll finally see what the plan has been all along. There's a reason why the dominoes have been placed, but they haven't fallen yet. We've heard this might happen, that might happen, so we'll see what happens, but until then, that Lou Lamoriello is not sleeping. A couple of you have tweeted at me and asked me, is Lou Lamoriello sleeping? No, he's not sleeping. He's working. It's not easy to move that Boychuk contract. It's not easy to move that Komarov contract. And yes, he should not have given Komarov that contract to begin with. I agree. But he did, and we're here now, and he's trying to move it. And whether you like it or not, he was named GM of the year this year, and there's a reason for that. He's brought this team back to.
He'll earn it going into the next season. I'll say that.
Absolutely, yeah. He was given that title for a reason. He brought this team back to being legitimate, being for the longest time they were nobody. They were we're playing the Islanders, easy win tonight. It's not like that anymore. This is not your Garth Snow's Islanders. This is Lou Lamoriello's Islanders. He's the GM of the year for a reason. Trust the process. Trust in Trotz. Trust in Lamoriello, and I think you're going to see a decently better lineup next year.
Yeah, I think I'm holding my breath for this upcoming year. I don't really know what to expect. I want them to be competitive. I think the roster that they had last year was great. I don't know. You start taking out even just one guy, it's one less player that Trotz can, plug and play whenever there's kind of an issue there. So it's a little scary thinking about that. Maybe even though you don't love Broussard, in every single night, it's nice to put him in there when he is playing well and when it's the right move.
Right.
We saw that from throughout the playoffs. So it's a little scary thinking about guys that we don't normally think about as being key contributors, because during the playoff run, they definitely were. Everyone kind of had their moment. Even Del Coley does what Trotz wants him to do. So far be it from me to judge the kid, that looks like he doesn't know how to handle a puck, as far as I'm concerned. This Trotz sees something, and he's a Hall of Fame coach. So, something's got to be right with him, and that he trusts him putting in the lineup. But yeah, we gotta have a little bit of patience. I don't, is Lou sleeping? No, but no one else is making a whole bunch of moves either.
Right.
Teams are being a little bit more careful with their money. They don't know what the revenue is going to look like, so no one's really going to be making moves until they have a better idea of the way things are looking and the way that the pandemic is trending right now. It's not looking good. So if there was even a glimmer of hope for 1/3 of the fans to be, or 1/4 of the fans to be in stadiums, it's just not going to happen right now the way that it's projected. So it'll be interesting to see where, again, it's all about cash. It's all about how it's all going to work and how you're going to be able to pay guys. You can, be below the cap. That's almost not the point. Can they pay them? Is there money?
Right.
You don't want to be like the Coyotes where you're late paying bonuses. You don't want the Islanders just scratched and clawed their way out of being a crappy destination. So they're finally becoming a good spot, UBS, blah, blah, blah. But they got to make sure they can pay everybody. And Lou doesn't want to handicap the team down the road and make a move now. So it's something that's going to take some consideration. And like we both said, no one else is doing anything right now, so we all just have to sit and wait.
Yeah. Practice patience, people. It's hard to do, but you're going to have to, buckle up for a pretty boring ride. I think that about wraps it up for us this week, John. Thank you to everyone who is listening right now. Thank you to those who listened yesterday on Twitch. We promise those updates will be made for next week, and when you hear us live, it will be a lot crisper, a lot cleaner. Please consider leaving a rate, a review, and subscribe wherever you listen to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Nassaumen Hockey, and find all of our work at The Hockey Writers. And now you can go pick up some Nassaumen Hockey podcast merch. Check out our bio on social media for the links and more information on the gear, some really cool stuff. This is Nassaumen Hockey Podcast, and until next time, guys, let's go Islanders.